You got lineup questions for week 11? We got answers. Let's talk about all the quarterbacks and tight ends that matter and go through every matchup. We do have 4 teams that are going to be out in week 11. That's the Cardinals, the Panthers, the Giants, and the Buccaneers. First, there are some must starts at each position that you can just set and forget. At quarterback, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Jaden Daniels. At tight end, Travis Kelce, George Kittle, and Brock Bowers. Before we set those fantasy lineups, let's set those picks on Underdog. You can still do NFL pick'ems at any time during the week, and if you haven't tried Underdog yet, let's start you out with a freebie. Jalen Hurts just going higher than 0.5 total yards on Thursday night. That's a free pick that you get. You get that free pick plus a deposit match all the way up to $1,000 worth of bonus cash from your first deposit if you use code NGAME when you check out as a new customer. Now, the Thursday night matchup should be a fun one featuring those 2 stud quarterbacks. What about the tight end position here? Let's start with Zach Ertz in Washington.
Zach Ertz is what Zach Ertz is. He's a solid streaming option. You're not going to be super excited you started him, but you're probably not going to be disappointed either.
He's fine. He's a streaming option. You want to get points. Hey, going against his former team, it doesn't matter. Like, he's fine. You can stream him if you need him. And then Dallas Goedert did finally return after missing a couple of weeks. Can he do anything against the Commanders defense?
Maybe. This is not a good matchup, but Dallas Goedert's out there. He's got Jalen Hurts. He could always score. So, again, a good streaming option.
I think I like him better than Ertz, but again, his upside is still going to be limited as long as AJB and Devontae Smith are healthy. So, a decent streamer. On Sunday, we're going to see the Raiders taking on the Dolphins in Miami. Let's start with the Raiders quarterback, Gardner Minshew.
I don't know what type of league I would need to be in to start Gardner Minshew. There is no way. I'm avoiding Gardner Minshew.
Gonna avoid him too. And take it a step further and say if you do underdog pick'ems for NFL, which you really should if you haven't yet, right now, 210.5 passing yards. That seems pretty optimistic for a guy like Minshew who barely scrapes to get 200 on a weekly basis. I'll take the lower on that. And if you haven't tried underdog pick'ems, you should do it now. You can take this pick. You can get that free Jalen Hurts pick. You got a great chance to win your very first shot at it. Just make sure if you're signing up for Underdog the very first time, use promo code NGAME when you check out. So the Dolphins, of course, have Tua Tagovailoa. Not really had a big game since week 1. Can he have one now?
It is a good spot at home against the Raiders. I don't know about a big game, but I think Tua probably one of the stronger streaming options this week.
Don't know if we're ever going to get last year's version of this Dolphins offense back again. Don't know what is going on, but despite the good matchup on paper, he's still just a streamer. And at tight end, Jonnu Smith, still moderately involved. Is he a decent streamer?
He's an okay streamer. I don't know about decent, but he's okay.
Yeah, he's an option. Kind of like Zach Ertz. You want a few points, hope for a touchdown, he's there. Now this might be a fun one too. The Browns at the Saints. Throw the records out the window here. We got Jameis Winston facing one of his former teams in New Orleans. Are we going to see famous Jameis?
Why not? He's been slinging it since he took over. He could always do what he did in the game before the bye and turn the ball over a ton, but then he could always throw for a bunch of yards and touchdowns too. I'm not ready to just proclaim the Saints defense back here after one nice game last week, so I'm not going to say Jameis Winston is a guy you have to start in a 1 QB league, but definitely in a 2 QB Superflex.
I think he's going to be one of my favorite streaming options here. I mean, look, the Browns have gone for 41 and 46 pass attempts in his 2 starts. They're one of the teams that have the highest pass rate over expectations, even in neutral game script. And yeah, come on, it's the Saints. I am not worried about them shutting him down. I think we see another big Winston game, so a strong streamer. And the tight end there, David Njoku, I mean, he's got to be a great option too.
Yeah, David Njoku has to be a strong start at tight end this week.
Yes, not a must start, but he's actually pretty close considering the tight end landscape right now. Then we still got Derek Carr in New Orleans. And hey, he's still got an arm. Threw a couple touchdowns last week. Can he do it against the Browns?
Maybe. I'm not betting on that again. But Derek Carr, I think, at least is startable in a 2 QB Superflex league.
Superflex, 2 QB. That's about right. We did not see more Taysom Hill last week. Do we see more Taysom Hill this week?
We could. We always could. You never know with Taysom, but I think he's an okay streaming option if you need him.
Yeah, they decided to bust out MVS instead. Like, who knows? The matchup doesn't matter. The week doesn't matter. Taysom Hill, risky flex if you need it. The Colts going to take on the Jets in Week 11.
After recording and editing this video, it was announced that Anthony Richardson would be the Colts starting QB not only for Week 11, but the rest of the season. Based on this news and the fact that it is a road matchup against the Jets, we're going to suggest you only play Anthony Richardson in a Superflex league this week.
Can't feel a lot better about Aaron Rodgers after last week, but I don't know, I guess still Superflex 2 QB.
Yeah, it's the Colts and they're at home, but yeah, risky 2 QB Superflex.
And the tight end is Tyler Conklin. One catch for, 8 yards last week? Is he still a streaming option?
Not for me. He's an avoid.
Yeah, if we can't feel great about, guys like Devontae Adams, how great can you feel about the tight end in this offense? Just avoid. Now, hopefully this video helps you with all your start-sit decisions, but if you still have questions for start-sit, waiver wire trades, or anything fantasy football related, use the Draft Lane app because that connects you directly with Chris and myself for all your fantasy football needs. Download it for free right now. Vikings at the Titans. Oh, Sam Darnold. This is what we remember. Look, is Sam Darnold going to right the ship this week, or is he reverting back to his old ways?
I don't know if he's going to right the ship this week. This is on the road against the Titans. 2 QB Superflex only.
I'll only say he's in the Superflex tier because, yeah, there are still that many quarterbacks who are that bad. And, yeah, we got 4 teams on bye. So only a Superflex option if you really need him. Now, TJ Hawkinson has thrived despite Sam Darnold throwing 3 picks last week. He, in fact, led the team in receiving. We have to be all back in on Hawk now.
I don't know about all back in, and I certainly don't expect him to lead the team in receiving again, but I still think TJ Hawkinson, from what I saw last week, I'm going to put him in the strong start tier.
I think we have to. I mean, he's shown enough now. Obviously, he's good enough health-wise. Going to get the targets. Yeah, you know what? Maybe he benefits from this tough matchup to the wide receivers, so strong start. And Will Levis is back for Tennessee. Hey, he didn't look too bad. You think maybe he's going to show some improvement, some maturity after those couple of games he missed.
Maybe, but this is not a good matchup for quarterbacks. This Vikings defense can really confuse a quarterback, and Will Levis can be easily confused. That being said, like you said, I mean, there's some guys like Flacco, Minshew. I'm not even starting those guys in 2 QB Superflex, so I'll say Levis is at least startable in 2 QB Superflex.
I love the way you put it. That's exactly right. I think he might get very confused in this game, so let's avoid Will Levis so we don't get the bad Levis. All right, Packers at Bears. Jordan Love, let's hope he's back to 100% health. Do you trust him in a 1-quarterback league?
I do, but I'm only going to put him as a solid start this week. So I don't feel like he's a guy you have to start if you have a better option, but it's still Jordan Love. I'd have trouble benching him. So a solid start.
Solid, but I mean, let's assume that he's good to go here. At the Bears, it's a pretty good pass defense still, but also, are they really going to need to throw it that much? Bears barely putting up a fight, so solid, but I don't think he has the highest ceiling. Now, Tucker Kraft had been a solid streamer and a good pickup early in the season. Do you still feel that way?
Yeah, I think he's a solid streamer. That's exactly where I would put him.
Well, actually, I have him a little bit lower there. I think he's more of a desperation streamer. I'm worried about Kraft. The target share, comes and goes like with any Packers receiver. It's not a great matchup. Don't know they're going to throw the ball a lot. So you could stream him, but I think you could do better. And then we need to talk about Caleb Williams. I mean, we don't have time to deep dive into this, but for Week 11, how you treat him in fantasy?
The same way I've been treating him the last few weeks. I'm avoiding Caleb Williams.
You just got to avoid him. Does that mean you're avoiding Cole Kmet?
Have to. This is 3 terrible games in a row. Apologies to Mark if you watched this. I tried to reverse jinx him. It didn't work. He's terrible. Not starting him.
Let's just avoid this Bears offense, at least the passing game for now. The Jaguars get to travel to Detroit to face the Lions this week, and looks like we're going to get another week of Mac Jones on the road in Detroit. Mac Jones.
No thank you. Man, Minshew, Flacco, and Mac Jones. He might be below those guys this week. I'm avoiding.
Oh, I can firmly put him below those guys. Yeah, I have less than 0 interest in Mac Jones in fantasy. Now, given the situation in Jacksonville these days, how good can you even feel about Evan Engram?
You can't feel great, but he at least gives you a floor still. He's still involved, so I'll say a streaming option only for Evan Engram, but like a decent streaming option.
He at least is getting targets. This is the weird thing about Jacksonville is they just funnel passes to the tight end, which might be one of the reasons Doug Peterson doesn't stick around. He's a streaming option, but can't go higher. Now, Jared Goff, on the one hand, is coming off a miserable game where he somehow threw 5 interceptions and they still won. On the other hand, he gets the Jaguars this week.
And at home. I know coming off that game last week, it's going to be hard to put Jared Goff in your lineup, but I'm going to say Jared Goff this week is a strong start.
He really should be a strong start. In fact, the Jags have been giving up 20-plus fantasy points to all quarterbacks, of course, until last week when Sam Darnold played them. Go figure. But I'll still say Goff should be a strong start because he should be. Then Sam Laporta did find the end zone again, but did also leave the game with an injury. We're going to have to monitor his status. If he's a full go, you putting him back in your fantasy lineups.
I think you have to. It's the Jaguars. I'm going to say if Sam Laporta plays, I'm going to say strong start, but I'm going to apologize ahead of time if he busts.
He's still a tight end. I mean, come on. How many tight ends are you really putting over Laporta these days? It's the Jaguars. So it's okay to not be fully in on him the rest of the season. But if you got him, you really should start him this week. Next, we got the Rams taking on the Patriots. Matt Stafford. Where do we put him in this road contest?
Can't feel good. It's the Patriots. They're not like an elite defense, but they're not terrible. And you got to think this is going to be an ugly, low-scoring game. 2 QB Superflex only.
Yeah, like he really didn't show up much in Monday Night Football. And I don't know, man. I feel like this offense should be doing better. They got their weapons. Everybody's healthy. Like, what's going on here? He's still a streaming option, I think, but at the very lower end. Is Drake May, the rookie, a streaming option?
I don't want to stream him in a 1 QB league against this Rams defense. It's actually playing pretty well, getting pressure on the quarterback, but I think he's okay in 2 QB Superflex.
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like he's playing better in real life than for fantasy purposes. Didn't run nearly as much last week, so Superflex is probably where he belongs. And then tight end Hunter Henry, I feel like he just always is what he is.
This week, I don't even know. Who knows with Hunter Henry? I mean, what's the ceiling here? Touchdown or bust?
Yeah, well, actually, what's weird, it was the other tight end, Austin Hooper, who somehow led the team in receiving last week. Whatever. Hunter Henry is always a streaming option. Ravens going to take on the Steelers. All right, so Mark Andrews, feel like he's still coming on. Isaiah Likely did miss last week. Do you think that has something to do with Andrews' production?
It might have, but he's been coming on like you said. I think I have to consider Mark Andrews a solid start at tight end this week.
If you held on to Andrews, should be thankful. You don't have to worry. You just pretty much set and forget. Not the high ceiling, but solid. And a lot of people doing the apology tour to Russell Wilson after last year. And this week, he gets the Ravens defense. I mean, how high can you go?
I'm not going to go overboard here on Russell Wilson. I do really like Russell Wilson. He's the best streaming option out there without a doubt. I'm going to put him in the solid start tier.
Yeah, it's so tempting to say he's a strong start. I mean, this Baltimore secondary is so bad. But again, it was Joe Burrow last week, so let's keep that in mind. Russell Wilson has looked good, but let's keep him as a solid option. And I got to think that Pat Freiermuth at tight end is also at the very least a solid option, if not a high-end streamer.
I'm going to put him as a solid start this week, actually. This is a great matchup for him against the Ravens, so solid start.
Yep, that's where I put him. And again, he's available in a lot of leagues still, so if he's on waivers and you need a tight end, go try to grab him. Seattle's going to take on San Francisco this week. Let's talk Geno Smith. He did put up some numbers in the previous game before the bye, but now on the road against the Niners.
I feel like Geno Smith is just going to always live in the 2 QB Superflex tier for me. There's going to be some weeks where you wish you streamed him in a 1 QB league, but I'm never going to want to actually stream him. But he's one of the better 2 QB Superflex QBs.
That seems fair. I mean, he's getting by with a lot of yardage. The touchdowns aren't always there. It's a tough matchup, so I'll say Superflex only. What about tight end Noah Fant?
And terrible last game. Now DK Metcalf probably back. It's the 49ers. I'm avoiding Noah Fant.
Going to avoid Noah Fant as well. Brock Purdy coming off a big game. Granted, that was against the Bucs. What do you think he can do here against the Seahawks?
I think he can have another big game. He's got his weapons back. I think the biggest thing for him is having Christian McCaffrey back. I think that just helps this offense so much. I think Brock Purdy, once again this week, is a strong start.
Well, yeah, this offense should continue to roll. I will say probably not going to be as high end for me this week because it's not the Bucs. I think he's at least a solid start because he's got a very high floor. All right, now we got the Falcons at the Broncos. Probably one of the more disappointing outcomes here was Kirk Cousins not demolishing the Saints. And now he gets to go on the road against this Broncos defense.
Can't feel good about Kirk. I'm going to say only 2 QB Superflex this week.
Gonna agree. Not sure what happened last week. Maybe just give credit to the Saints, but come on, Kirk, you can do better than that. Not a good matchup here. Superflex only. Same goes for Kyle Pitts. He's at least startable, I think.
He's startable. I think he's still a solid start. He at least gets the targets. He, has some upside. He's a solid start.
Very disappointing that he didn't do better last week, but he'll get some targets. He's startable. He's a solid option, I think. Now for the Broncos, Bo Nix continues to impress. Look, the numbers aren't amazing for fantasy purposes, but that was a tough matchup last week. What can he do this week?
He wasn't bad last week. I think he won't be bad again this week, but I'm not playing him in a 1 QB league. But in 2 QB Superflex leagues, he's solid.
I feel like even in a tough spot or an easy spot, like Baltimore, Kansas City, kind of always stays the same production-wise, so he's a Superflex option. The Chiefs taking on the Bills this week, and no, Pat Mahomes still not a must start. Not sure if he'll ever get back to that this season, but where do you rank him in this matchup?
I'm only going to put him as a streaming option this week. This is not a good matchup on the road against Buffalo. I don't think he has a ton of upside this week, but he's certainly better than a lot of the other options, so a streamer.
Yeah, you have to throw out all the big games he's had against teams like Buffalo in the past. It's just a different version of the Chiefs here. I don't think it's really going to be a high-scoring game in general. So I think he's just a streamer. Yeah, Travis Kelce, absolutely a must start. Dalton Kincaid is not, and he's dealing with a knee injury, so not even sure his status. If he plays, would you play him?
No, I'm going to avoid him. Against the Chiefs, even last week, look, I know the second half he had that knee injury, but what was he doing in the first half last week with everybody hurt? I'm done with Dalton Kincaid. I'm avoiding.
That's exactly where I'm at. I even said it on the waiver video. You can just cut him. The Bengals and the Chargers going to be facing each other on Sunday night. Joe Burrow has just been on fire. You've got to start him. Mike Gesicki had been on fire until last week. What do you do with Gesicki this week?
I think if T. Higgins is out, he's still streamable. But if T. Higgins plays, I'm going to probably avoid Mike Gesicki.
Yeah, that seems to be the trick with Gesicki. It is really, really aggravating that the other tight end, Tanner Hudson, actually had a nice game last week. So, look, if Higgins doesn't play, yes, Gesicki is still a strong streamer, but otherwise, ignore him, like you said. Now, what about Justin Herbert in this matchup?
I feel pretty good about Herbert in this matchup. I feel like the Chargers are going to have to throw the ball more than they want, and Herbert's been pretty solid recently. I'll say he's a streaming option.
If you watched the waiver wire video, you know what I feel about Herbert and why. Bengals defense has actually been really bad against the pass. And the Chargers might have to pass the ball a lot more than they want this week, so he's going to be probably my favorite streaming option, other than, well, maybe Jameis Winston. The Texans at the Cowboys in Week 11. CJ Stroud. I get that Nico Collins has been out, but still, we should be seeing better, shouldn't we?
We should. And man, that throw to Tank Dell that ended up being an interception by Carlton Davis was just a microcosm of the whole year. You got Tank Dell wide open for a long touchdown, and you do that. But that being said, Nico should be back this week, and it's the Cowboys. I'm going to say CJ Stroud is a streaming option.
This is a big if for me, if Nico actually plays, and only because of the matchup in the Cowboys. Talk about a team that's hit the skids. So, just a streamer, though, and that's only if Nico plays. Now, Dalton Schultz get to face his former team. With or without Nico, does it matter?
I think without Nico, he's okay, but I'm betting on Nico playing, so I'm going to avoid Dalton Schultz.
Yeah, I'll probably avoid Dalton Schultz either way. We know we're not getting Dak Prescott back. We might have another week of Cooper Rush. Can you stream Cooper Rush or even Superflex him?
No way. Cooper Rush might be last of all the quarterbacks we've talked about.
I can't argue against that. Did not look good whatsoever. Not a great matchup. Just don't think about Cooper Rush this week. So where does that leave Jake Ferguson, who, believe it or not, led the Cowboys with 24 yards receiving last week?
Can't feel good about Jake Ferguson. Barely a streaming option if you're desperate.
Yep, sad but true. Ferguson, just a desperation streaming option. If you didn't catch all our other start sit videos or everything else we put out to help you win, it's all here in the Week 11 playlist.